Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had someone ask me in the comments in one of my videos talking about professional bodybuilding and competitive bodybuilding in general, where I was discussing how unhealthy they are. They mentioned powerlifting, which is a sport I have historically competed in, and they said, hey, but you know, they promote obesity. Lots of guys who just get as fat as possible to lift as much weight as possible, so doesn't powerlifting promote being unhealthy also? So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on scaling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. And I think too many people watch too much stuff on the internet who haven't been to 5 or 6 powerlifting meets. And I think anyone who went to 5 or 6 different powerlifting meets would have a very, very, very different view of what a powerlifter is and what they look like. Because the truth is, it's not what you would expect. Now, I want to state up front, anytime you get into anything competitive, anytime we do anything competitive, it has the potential to be unhealthy, right? It has the potential to be unhealthy. And I rag on bodybuilding because certain things in bodybuilding, even natural bodybuilding, require a negative effect on your health to compete at all. In other words, dieting down to 6% body fat is unhealthy. I don't care if the rest of your lifestyle is insanely healthy. That is going to take a very negative toll on you. That's not promoting health. You know, but I'm not saying that's the worst thing in the world. If someone does that completely natural, are they going to suffer health effects? Yes. But, you know, the average American eats at McDonald's pretty often. That's going to affect your health. So it's not the end of the world if a person diets down to 6% body fat 3 times over the course of their life. It's probably not any worse than regularly eating at McDonald's during those years. You know, probably not. So it's not the most unhealthy thing you could possibly do. But when you compete in anything, you always have some risk of your health or of injury or anything else, because in competition the goal is to win. And sometimes that requires pushing limits. Pushing limits, it can potentially hurt your body when you do anything competitively. So, that part aside, as far as powerlifting goes, I think people need to understand that powerlifting, actually for a long time has been this way, but in more recent years you don't see that many fat powerlifters. And when I say fat, I'm not talking about what bodybuilders call fat. No one cares what you guys with your delusional weird body dysmorphia consider fat. I'm talking what a medical doctor, right? A medical doctor or the general populace calls fat. The reason you see the really fat guys is, number one, open-ended weight classes. You know, people who can be over 308, as well as equip lifting, because historically equip lifters have oftentimes been fatter because certain squat suits and everything work really, really well for people with a big belly. But in raw powerlifting, you don't see many guys who are very fat. And if you do, they're not winning. All right? Outside of the 308 plus weight class, and it's very common to go to 3 or 4 powerlifting meets without having anyone in that class, right? Very possible for you to attend multiple meets without ever seeing anyone compete at over 308 pounds. But if you're 30% body fat in a raw powerlifter, no suits involved, you are absolutely not going to win your class unless you're the only guy who shows up. Which does happen, but the fact of the matter is it's just not the case. And I would say, in my experience, the healthy body fat range is between 10 to 20% for men. Medically agreed upon. Your opinions are irrelevant. Your opinions are irrelevant. We're going to go with what the medical literature says and what most medical doctors and healthcare professionals say. That's where men tend to be healthiest. Somewhere between 10 and 20%. I would say, in my experience over the years at powerlifting meets, that most competitive powerlifters, when I say most, I would say 90%. In other words, you go to a meet where 50 guys compete, right? 50 guys compete, 45 of those guys are going to be between 10 and 20% body fat, just an estimate, right? There'll be some, you know, there'll be some who drift over 20%. But we kind of fall back to that other point. Someone who is extremely physically active with a lot of muscle can possibly get away with being a little over 20% and their blood work still look pretty good. So that's also something you have to factor in as well. Physical activity can offset that. So when you start really looking at this, it's just not the case. And if you guys look at what weight classes are most powerlifters in, realistically, at a meet, you just start going to various regional meets, right? I can promise you guys, if you go to even the non-drug tested regional meets, I don't care whether it's the USPA, the WPC, any of these non-drug tested meets, what are going to be your biggest possible weight classes where the most guys are at? It's going to be the 181, the 198, and the 220, right? Depending upon where you go in the meet, you're more likely to see more guys, especially at a big meet. Let's say you go to a meet with at least 100 people competing, or at least 100 men, because at these days if there's 100 men, there'll be 50 women competing. You go to a meet with 100 men and then tally up the weight classes, you're going to find the majority, the biggest segment is going to be the 181 up to the 220. Like the last meet I did, 13 guys is an invite-only meet paid for to compete in the 220, the class I was in. And I think 8 showed up. 8 showed up. I ended up taking third in that one. But 8 guys showed up at one meet for my class. And I mean my class total, the 220. Meaning they had to weigh, they're going to be between 199 and 219, or and up to 220. You can't be 220.1. But that's the class that they were in. 8 guys just in my class, and that's the raw open, meaning you're between the ages of like 23 and 39, raw, no equipment, no wraps in that class. And I think the 198, the next class down, had like 7 or 8 guys. And then the 181 had like 7 or 8 guys. So you're talking about over 20 guys in just that one tiny class. And then there were other guys in different age categories in those weight ranges, right? Because you have all these other age ranges. But just those 3 in the raw open, so that's a certain, most common age group. There were over 20 guys in just that little bracket. Some of those guys had visible abs. Quite a few of them did. So that's your biggest classes, guys. That's your biggest weight classes. Now, out of guys who lift hard enough to be competitive powerlifters, do you think there are that many guys who are going to be fat, who are going to weigh between 181 and 220, and you usually see a height differential there, all right? My class, you usually see guys ranging from about, 5'8" up to about 5'11", where almost every single guy in my class was in that height range. You go to the 198, you'll see, again, about 5'6" up to about 5'9", maybe about 5'10". You go down to the 181, you're going to see guys who are ranging from about, anywhere from about 5'4" up to about 5'9" is the upper threshold, who are actually doing decent. So the reason you see even these different weight classes is more height than anything else. And you start seeing guys who are 6 foot plus. In order to be competitive, they're usually going to be in the 242, the 275. But these are the taller guys. It's almost like everyone within a given weight class at any sort of invite-only meet, there's usually, when you look through that weight class, about 3 to 4 inches of height difference among the guys in any given weight class who are being successful. And what you start finding is that weight class matters. 99% of powerlifters compete in a weight class, not the open-ended super heavy weight where you're 308 plus. That's where everyone over that goes into that. If you're over 308 pounds, you go into the super heavy, right? There are meets all the time where there's not a single person in that class. That's not even the norm. It's not even close to the norm. Not even close to the norm. And the truth is, as far as guys you see who most people you would think of as fat, you will find at any meet, you will find a guy with a six-pack who's at 10, 11% or even 9% body fat for every single guy who you would classify as fat at any given meet. You're going to see those guys kind of evenly spread, but most people are going to be in the normal body fat range because they need to be, because they're competing against other people in a weight class. And if you're carrying 20 pounds more body fat than is really ideal for you to be athletic and have a decent strength or whatever, you're going to end up being in a weight class heavier, and therefore you're going to risk competing against a guy who's got 10 to 15 pounds more muscle on him than you do, and you're going to get your ass handed to you in that weight class. If someone else shows up and has 15 pounds of muscle mass on you and they compete against you in the same weight class, they are going to beat you. So if you're carrying 20 pounds of extra body fat, it would be a wise idea to diet 15 to 20 of that pounds of body fat off. You'll be more competitive as a powerlifter. It's a competitive sport. If anything, it encourages you to be at an athletic body fat, right? It actually encourages that because of the weight classes. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.